Joining me right now is Florida Congressman, member of the House Armed Services Committee, and former Green Beret commander, the only Green Beret in Congress, Michael Waltz. And Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks,
your reaction to what took place overnight. Kevin McCarthy was up all night slamming this bill, as it is going to mean much higher taxes for Americans and runaway spending.
Well, good on him, Maria. And we were all up with him and supporting him. You know, Americans want to see us fighting back against this nonsense. And, you know, I think they're sick and tired. You're certainly seeing it in the polling. They're sick and tired of these self-inflicted wounds and where this administration has taken the country in just 11 months. I mean, it's a self-inflicted labor and supply chain crisis. It's a self-inflicted border crisis, an energy crisis. A crisis in crime, rising crime in our cities. It's not as though there was some existential event like, you know, a hurricane or an earthquake or an unexpected war. I mean, this is all from bad policy, and they are about to triple down on it with what I call this Build Back Stupid plan. And to your point on the deficit spending, I mean, the part that they're arguing about in the CBO score is how aggressive 85,000 IRS agents are going to be in coming after every American's money. And that's 8.5 divisions. That will double the size of the IRS. And that's what the Democrats want to argue, that you know, the CBO isn't being aggressive enough, and how aggressive the IRS is going to be coming after every American's money. It's just absurd. Yeah, I mean, and good on Kevin McCarthy for taking a stand.
Yeah, I mean, it's also sort of insult to injury, isn't it, the way that this president lies to the American people, you know, as if we're stupid. I mean, it's going to cost nothing. Of course we know it's not going to cost nothing. It's going to cost us much higher taxes. But he gets away with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, he's bold-faced lying about Afghanistan. He's lying about this. He's lying about helping the environment, yet making us more dependent on Russian oil and gas, which is, you know, some of the dirtiest form in the world. And then, you know, so much in this plan, in this Green New Deal plan, is going to flow right out the door, right over into China and into Western China, making 80% of the world's solar panels. So the lies continue. And you're right, though. The American people are seeing right through it. And that's why you're seeing the administration's poll numbers tank.
Yeah, I want to talk about China. You and I have had great conversations about China, but let me show you these new Fox News polls, because you're right. The American people do see through it. 60% of registered voters say that they think President Biden is not tough enough on China and is not doing a good job. The same polling shows the growing threat from China has Americans worried. 35% are extremely concerned about Beijing's military and economic power. 34% are very concerned as well. Congressman, even with the obvious, you know, threat that the Chinese Communist Party represents, this president refuses to push them on anything. He rolls over. He allows these companies to be listed on our exchanges, as well as not pushing back on some of this bad behavior. He had a phone call with Xi Jinping this week, and the origins of COVID did not come up.
Right.
Is this possible?
Yeah, well, I think that's the biggest piece, Maria. You know, on the one hand, the Democrats and Biden are just pounding the table about COVID and how deadly it is, and how we have to lock down our society because of it. And we know the spiel there. But then on the other hand, the country where it came from is completely covering it up, has really unleashed this on the world. And the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, won't even raise it in a phone call. Oh, by the way, the last 3 pandemics have come from China, and we're not seeing any behaviors change for what's going to stop the next one from coming. But the other thing, Maria, I think it really woke the American people up is on our manufacturing and on our supply chains. And we saw firsthand that little things like masks and gloves and gowns, if we don't make them here in the United States, or at least in the Western Hemisphere, and we have our greatest adversary threatening to choke them off, much less 90% of our pharmaceuticals that we're now also dependent on them for, That's a huge problem. That's a national security problem. And we haven't seen a national security issue poll this high since right after 9/11 with terrorism. And that's a great thing. I mean, we need to wake up the American people to the fact that the Chinese Communist Party is in a Cold War with the United States, and we have to start fighting back with our wallets. When people see made in China, put it down. Put it down.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember back in 2020, it was April of 2020 when I reported that my sources were telling me ships were loaded with those PPE products, the gloves and the gowns that you're referring to, masks, and those ships were told, turn around and go back to China. We need those products. They cornered the market on those products. And then the Global Times, which is, of course, a mouthpiece for the CCP, comes out and pretty much threatens the United States and says, well, if the U.S. keeps poking China on tariffs and about trade, maybe we won't send them the active ingredients that they need in their prescription drugs.
That's right.
I mean, 80% or 90% of the active ingredients in prescription drugs for the United States is still made in China. Why is it taking so long to convert some of these manufacturing facilities to the United States? What are we supposed to do now? Make believe we're all celebrating the upcoming Olympics in Beijing? Biden said that the U.S. is considering a diplomatic boycott of the upcoming Winter Olympics in Beijing, barring government officials from attending games. I've got news for you. Xi Jinping doesn't want any foreigners there anyway, so it's not like that's doing anything. What would really be something to do is change the manufacturing, get some of those major manufacturing production facilities into the United States. What is it going to take?
Well, you know, we need a wake-up call with Wall Street, and I think we're going to have a divorce with the Republican Party. And I want Wall Street to hear me loud and clear. We are going to take back the House in 11 months. And all of these companies who, on the one hand, want to pad their bottom line by selling and pandering to the woke masses in the United States, but then want to pad their bottom line by putting our security at risk in China, I think you've got another thing coming. But to your point of why it's taken so long is, again, the bottom line. And I think many Wall Street, you know, led by our buddy Larry Fink at BlackRock, and who now has his people in the #2 in Treasury and heading Biden's Economic Council, you know, those days are going to be coming to an end. We are going to clamp down. Yeah. We do have to have these, if not onshored in the United States, at least allied shore. But we can't have a situation where our adversary is threatening to shut off 90% of the world's critical minerals. By the way, the Green New Deal provisions will make us even more dependent on those, and we can't have them dependent on so many other things, Maria. We've talked about it. We've just got to reduce that dependency and get it made back here.
Well, what an embarrassment. Where are your colleagues on the left on this issue? I don't hear a peep out of Nancy Pelosi or anybody on the Democrat Party about the threat that is China. Congressman, thanks very much for your leadership on this. We recognize the importance here. Thank you, sir. We'll be watching. Congressman Michael Waltz joining us this morning.